Hello YouTube family, this is Alex from Gonta Haus German Shepherds. Today we're going to talk about how to be a successful breeder, and maybe that's something you want to pursue and you're thinking about it and you say to yourself, well, I see all these YouTube videos about dog breeding, all the people I see seem very profitable and very successful, maybe I should try this. And so my video here is to provide you, the newbie, information. And maybe you will think about it. You might decide this is for you, or you might decide this is not for you. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to educate the person who is trying to think about becoming a dog breeder. So most people who think about dog breeding will approach it from one of two approaches. What is your reason for breeding? Is it a passion or a profit? One breed or several breeds? How many females? Let's talk about that. When I started breeding German Shepherds, I could not find the kind of dogs I wanted that could take training to the degree I like to train. I previously worked with American show lines and only occasionally had working lines to work with, but I still couldn't find the dogs I would like. If they were from working lines, they were either too aggressive and too suspicious and were only good for sport, or they were from pet lines. They were great pets and very affectionate, but had no working ability. I couldn't find that middle ground. So I decided to breed for myself and the dogs I would want to keep, and I had to sell the rest because I couldn't keep them all. So initially my primary motivator was not money. It was to produce the kind of dogs I wanted for myself. It was more of a passion project. Now, but because you have to sell the puppies, money enters into the picture. So be honest with yourself. If you're breeding for money, then just admit it. You're breeding for money. There's nothing wrong with that. It is a business. The dog industry as a whole is a very multi-billion-dollar industry. You have dog food, dog kennels, veterinary costs, supplies, leashes, tugs, balls, board and train, just plain boarding and daycare. Millions of products and services are sold regarding dogs, but the person who starts the chain of events in the first place, which is the breeder, because without dogs being born, there's nothing to offer services to. The breeder doesn't actually make a lot of money out of the entire industry, which is having a lot of money. So the dog breeder is only 4% of the market share of all the money involved in this industry. So this is not lucrative compared to all the money floating around in this industry. So, okay, well, let's talk about money. People will have this simple argument. Well, let's see. A top-end breeder, I'm going to have a little water, my mouth is dry. A top-end breeder commands, let's say, $2,500 to $3,500 per puppy. And they've been doing this a while, so they can ask that kind of price per puppy. And so if my breed has an average of, let's say, 10 puppies per litter, and that's a large breed, and I have 10 puppies per litter, $3,500 a puppy, that's $35,000. 3 females going in heat. Over the course of a year, I'll make $35,000 per litter times 3 litters, and I'll make $100,000. So all of a sudden, it seems like a very lucrative business. Hold on there, Sparky, it's not so fast. I see videos on YouTube where some people say, well, it's $1 million business or a multi-million-dollar business. And they drive with their Mercedes or their high-end cars and show you how successful they are. I don't know why they make these videos making it sound like it's $1 million business. It's not. I'm going to be very real with you. You're not going to make $1 million selling dogs. You're just not. So put all those ideas out of your head. Okay? I'll be very real with you. Now, so can you make a full-time living selling dogs? Not by itself as the only business. You will need to have something dog-related in addition to breeding, because a litter is born only once a year, and that's not monthly income you could live on. So that's the first thing. I have another source of income, so therefore this is not my main income. So then the question becomes, well, should I breed one breed or several? If I have more than one breed, perhaps I'll make more money when one breed is not hot. Maybe this other breed is hot and I can still make money. It doesn't work that way, folks. If you want to become a good breeder, an elite breeder, you have to understand one breed, in my opinion. You have to understand the conformation of that breed. You have to understand what makes for a quality puppy in that breed, what makes for a show quality puppy in that breed, and what makes for a working quality puppy in that breed. So, if you breed multiple breeds, it's impossible to know the conformation standards of so many different breeds. You're therefore breeding a puppy mill. You're not creating a business where you're an elite breeder of a specific breed. You should breed the breed you like, okay? Now, how many females should you get in order to become profitable? Well, that's a very difficult question. First of all, is your breeding model tied to studying out stud dogs, or is your model based on females? Most breeders may not own the male, but they will own one or two females. And that is the better model, because a stud dog has to be a big champion, at least 2 years old before you can breed, and usually has to be highly titled and highly successful before you can breed to him. Whereas for the cost of a stud fee, you can get the world champion, and you can get a stud fee out of simply paying the owner of the stud dog. So, and the stud fee of the world champion may not be much bigger than a dog which is just titled and health tested. So for the cost of a stud fee, you can get very high-end blood without owning that high-end blood and titling that dog yourself. In my breed, titles matter. In other breeds, which are just companion breeds, conformation matters more than titles. In my breed, conformation and titles matter. But that varies with each breed. So, in my opinion, breeding should start off with a female, not a male. That's the most practical advice I can give you. Now, would you have 3 or 4 females that you're loading up on if you were not designing a breeding business? Let's say you were just having pets. Would you own that many females? The answer is probably not. So my advice to the beginning breeder is to not load up on dogs. You see, for every female you have to say to yourself, what is my cost of that dog? Not just the initial purchase price of that female, but what other costs are involved. Let's talk about that. So let's talk about the fact that you're going to sell health-tested puppies, because the cost and expense of medical issues of your puppy should be on you, the breeder, and not on the buyer. In other words, let's say the puppy develops degenerative myelopathy. For $150 for an embark test, you could have prevented that puppy from even being created because you paired a carrier to another carrier. Now that buyer is in love with that dog, and that dog is suffering because you, the breeder, didn't do genetic testing. Or the dog has an extremely bad hip, and it costs $4,000 per hip to do hip surgery, and you could have done OFA hip x-rays. Now most hip dysplasia issues are environmental. The dog fell from a high surface, was jumped, the dog was severely overweight. So hip dysplasia in one leg is usually not genetic. Usually if it's bilateral hip dysplasia, at that point it's genetic. 70% of hip dysplasia is environmental. But you can increase your odds of not having hip dysplasia by OFA testing your dogs. Now, what is the typical cost? In different parts of the country, there are different costs. I live in an area next to New York City, in Hudson County, New Jersey. Therefore, my costs are New York City prices. In my area, an OFA hip x-ray with anesthesia is $700 to $900. $200 for anesthesia and $700 for the hip x-rays. And you can't just do hip x-rays, you must also do elbow x-rays. So you have a cost of $900 to do hip and elbow x-rays at 2 years of age. At 2 years of age or prior, you can do or embark. It's $150 for the first test and $100 for every subsequent test. and the kit for breeders is different than the kit for regular consumers. So the dog just cost you $900 for hips and $150 for OFA's testing. Now you're at $1,050 for one female to do health testing. Now remember, you are raising that female until she's at least 2 years old before you breed her. So there's a carrying cost until the dogs are mature enough, and that's phase one. In phase one, your dogs are just growing up to become breeders. At that point, you cannot breed until they're at least 2 years of age. Anybody who breeds a 1-year-old dog is not ethical, because to put it in human terms, is a 16-year-old girl able to have children? Biologically, yes, but is she emotionally a woman? No, she's a child. She's a teenager. No 16-year-old should have babies that young. It's not prepared emotionally or financially or psychologically to carry human children. Now, that applies to female dogs. A 1-year-old female dog is like a human teenager child. In other words, it's a teenager, it's not an adult. By 2 years of age, a dog is old enough to have children. It's approximately something like a 20-year-old human being. So that's much more mature. So if you're breeding a dog at 1 year of age, you shouldn't be breeding dogs. You don't understand the developmental cycle of the animal. I've seen people breed a dog as early as the first heat cycle. Come on, guys, you know that's wrong. So be ethical in what you do. Okay, so we're now at $1,050 for the health testing per female. So you have 4 females, that's $4,000. Now you have to pay the stud fee. The stud fee is the same as the cost as the puppy, which is usually, let's say the puppy is $2,000. The stud fee is $2,000. If the puppy sells for $2,500, the stud fee is $2,500. So add that into your total cash requirement. What other kind of cash do you need? Before you whelp your first litter, you should consider the fact that there might be a need for a C-section, or a puppy might be in breech position, or she might be spotting and a puppy might be being reabsorbed, or she might bleed out. All these contingencies can happen, and you have to be prepared for them. A scheduled C-section with a repo vet, and there are not a lot of repo vets, by the way. Most veterinarians are not specialists in reproduction. In fact, most veterinarians are anti-breeder. That's the society we're living in now, adopt, don't shop. And why does the president and CEO of SPCA make $750,000 a year as a salary, and with stock options and overall benefits package, he makes $1 million a year? So how's adopt, don't shop so virtuous if they can pay the CEO of the company $1 million a year for adopting dogs? Think about that. So, realistically speaking, to produce puppies not on the cheap, but to produce puppies properly is not a cheap undertaking. So you need to have a scheduled C-section, if your breed requires it, is $3,500. Like French Bulldogs require a C-section to be born. But a large breed like a German Shepherd usually does not require a C-section. That's the word usually, but things can happen. An emergency C-section is $6,000 in my area. You need to have $6,000 cash in your hand, in case an emergency C-section is required, or a puppy's in breech position. It's life-saving. You might lose the mother, and she might die, and you will lose the entire litter. You must be able to take emergency action if called upon. Therefore, you must have the cash, must have it. So before you breed your first litter, what kind of cash do you need? Well, you need $6,000 cash reserve for an emergency C-section. Although you might not use it, you should have it. You need about a $2,000 stud fee. You need about $2,000 for advertising costs, about the cost of a single puppy. That should be your minimum advertising cost that you should consider as an expense to advertise your puppies, because you have to find them good homes, okay? And you should consider that there's initial whelping supplies like snippets, which will clip the umbilical cord, I use Revival Animal Health. They're not sponsoring this video. This is just my own knowledge I'm passing on to you. You need bottles to feed the puppies. You need snippets. You need something which will clip on the umbilical cord so it heals. You need iodine. You need a lot of things to take up a litter. Figure out at least 500 in whelping supplies. That includes vitamins for the mother dog. Some dogs can't get pregnant if they don't have enough omega-3 fish oil. The cheapest solution is to give them some sardines. That helps. They might not have enough sunshine to get pregnant, so make sure they have enough sunshine, or get a lamp which creates sunlight without heat. That helps to come into heat. But you need to take care of the mother dog really, really well. Vaccinations, cleaning her up with amoxicillin as a pre-pregnancy cleanup process. There's a lot of costs involved in setting up for the whelp. The whelping box alone might cost you $500 or more, depending on the size of your dog. So overall, I estimate you need about 10,000 startup costs before you have your first litter. Now what I normally do is I don't wait for the puppies to be born to start advertising them. I start advertising a few months before they're born to try to collect at least 50% of the litter in deposits, because I don't know how many will be born, so I don't want to collect more deposits than I will have puppies, but I try to at least pre-sell 50% of my litter if possible. And those $500 deposits that you get from buyers help to offset your initial capital requirement for the litter. That would be my advice to you. Build a buyer's list before you have a litter. Do the old-fashioned way, build a buyer's list. What else are you going to need to set up puppies? Well, you have to go to Google Trends and type in your breed, let's say German Shepherds. Which part of the country had the most German Shepherd sales in the last 5 years? Or something along the lines of, which part of the country had the greatest number, what are the trends of German Shepherd sales in the last 5 years? Or what are the trends of Golden Retriever sales in the last 5 years? Or what are the trends of Poodle sales in the last 5 years? In other words, Google Analytics will tell you which parts of the country have the most sales for your breed. You leverage that. Now let's say you buy Google ads to put your puppies in front of as many buyers as possible, right? Well, let's say German Shepherds are selling better in Kentucky and Pennsylvania than New York City. Well, guess what? You're going to target that location in your Google search. Now, some people say, well, social media is the best place to sell puppies, like YouTube and so forth. I don't think so. People come to social media to be entertained. Now, it doesn't hurt if you post a lot of photographs and a lot of videos of your dogs, but people watching your channel are there to be entertained. I've seen social media where the short I've created will get 1,100 views very quickly, but a longer format video, which is let's say 20 minutes, will get almost no views. People are not coming to learn, people are coming to be entertained. We also have this ADD psychology now because of TikTok. Everybody wants quick, and some information is not meant to be quick. Some information is meant to be absorbed and thought through. So if you're going to take on this enterprise of breeding dogs, it's not entertaining. It is very risky when you have a puppy in your hands. At that point, you're not thinking about business, you're thinking about life and death. You have a brand new newborn you brought into this world. The female didn't ask to become pregnant. You made a business decision to make her pregnant. You want to clear the nose and the breathing ability. You're holding life in your hands. And your goal is to keep them alive, period. Forget about business at that point. It's about life and death itself. That's the responsibility you're taking. You have to have responsibility for what you produce. They have to be an extension of your family and your brand. If you don't care about life, and if some die, you say, they live, and they die, they die. You should be not in this business. You have the wrong attitude about dogs, in my opinion. So, you should really think about the ethics of breeding prior to breeding. Now, speaking of ethics, What if you sell a puppy and in your contract it says the medical care of the puppy is on the buyer once they leave your house, and the buyer calls you in 3 days and says, the puppy swallowed a pebble and is near death, its intestine twisted, and if you don't put up the cash to do emergency surgery, they don't have cash, they'll put the puppy to sleep. What will you do in that circumstance? Will you walk away and say, I sold you a healthy puppy and now the burden is on you? Or if you don't take action, the dog will die in a matter of hours without receiving surgery. What will you do? How will you handle that situation? That happened to me. So you have to upfront decide, where is your moral code? What are you going to do in those kind of situations? You can't just think about, $2,500 per puppy, 10 puppies, you start counting cash in your mind. No, you have to think about contingencies and how will you take care of that situation. You have to think about giving the puppies a lifeline to come back to you at any time. If your puppy is being mistreated and is tied to a chain and living outside and not being taken care of or neglected or abused, your puppies must have a ability to come back to you. Must. It's in my contract and I believe in it. Now, if you want to say, well, I sold you a dog, the rest is on you, goodbye, good luck, I wash my hands. Well, that's your moral compass. Sorry, my throat is dry, I'm drinking a lot. So, what is your moral obligation to those dogs you brought into this world? Will you take them back? Do you have the space to take them back and rehome them? It had to be, in my situation, I had 3 situations in 3 different litters where I had to take a dog back because it was being mistreated. So you have to be a lifeline to your pups if you want to be ethical. You have to follow some kind of a moral code. Okay, speaking of moral code, we face a slightly different situation. Let's say you use Google Analytics and tells you that Cavalier Charles Spaniels are not selling well, but Cockapoos, which is a King Charles Spaniel mixed with a small poodle, are selling well. Or let's say purebred retrievers are not selling well, but a retriever mixed with a poodle is selling well. Now, will you bastardize your breed and create mongrels in the name of creating a buck? Remember, a breed took 100 years to create or more. Will you bastardize your breed and create mongrels simply so you can make money? That's also an ethical dilemma in my thinking, because breeds were meant to be kept pure. Otherwise, why did breeds get developed? Then any dog will do, and I don't believe in that. I believe breeds serve a specific function. Even small lab dog breeds still are pure breed dogs. So that's a different kind of moral dilemma. In my opinion, you shouldn't mix breeds. You should keep breeds pure. But some people make the business decision that I'm out to make money, and if a mix makes me money, so be it. That's their decision. I have my position on this. You don't ruin 100 years of breeding just because you want to make a quick buck. Now, something you should know is what makes for a good dog. I talk to a lot of breeders. They don't know the first thing about conformation. They don't know what's acceptable colors or not acceptable colors in their breed. They don't know what the difference is between a pet quality puppy, a show quality puppy, or a working quality puppy. Go to an AKC show. Educate yourself. Pick up a book of what makes for a well-bred dog in your breed and what makes for a poorly bred dog in your breed. It's free, guys. Go to an AKC show, at least once. So get yourself educated before you breed dogs. Know what makes for a well-structured dog and what doesn't. You're breeding pure breeds. You should know something about the breed standard. You'll be surprised how many people don't know the grandparents of their own dog. Couldn't tell anything from the pedigree. They know nothing about the pedigree of their own dog. And why are they breeding dogs? They don't know anything about that dog's lineage. So I feel you should educate yourself. Okay. Going over the ethics, I think you get my point. You have to be ethical and think what you're doing and provide a way back for your puppies. Next topic. Do you have the time commitment and emotional commitment to dog breeding? People think it's easy money. The mama dog does all the work and they don't have to do anything and just collect the money. In fact, Nothing could be further from the truth. In the first 3 weeks of the litter, you don't know if the litter survives or not. That's the most time-intensive time of that litter. If you have to take time off from work with your boss, tell them I have to take vacation, because you know the puppies will arrive 63 days after the female is bred. So you should time your vacation time with the litter arriving time. That way you can take time off to do this. If you think you can work a full-time job and do this, you're wrong. Somebody should be at home. If you're a man, your wife should be home, or vice versa. Whoever's watching this video. You need to dedicate a solid 3 weeks minimum, which is the critical period, to take the puppies through birth, through that first 3 weeks. They're mostly out of the woods after 3 weeks because they can start being weaned. But the most critical is the first 3 weeks. In fact, in the first week, they could die of hypothermia. Even though the room is warm, unless you adjust that heating lamp up and down, or you have a surface on the bottom which is heated, so not the entire whelping box is heated, but right over that heating pad the lamp is, and the heating pad itself is a temperature adjustment and timer. And you have a thermometer on the bottom so you can adjust the height of the lamp to get the heat right? Now, are you going to stay up all night and feed every 2 hours? And you have to feed every 2 hours around the clock. I spent countless nights without sleep to produce puppies. I was working like a zombie. I was like this. Now, do you have the support of your spouse in this enterprise? You will need emotional support if you're going to breed dogs. If your wife tells you, I want nothing to do with this, I want no part of this, leave me out of it, you probably shouldn't breed dogs. You should have consensus in your family before breeding dogs. If your significant other is not willing to help you, and you're going to go without sleep for days, you're going to fall apart, man. You got to have somebody help you so you get some sleep and you can recover from this whole endeavor, okay? You need somebody to give you emotional support and at very least sleep, otherwise you won't function. So make sure your spouse is on board, otherwise don't do this. That's my advice to you. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is, well, a female might have a litter of 12 pups. That was my first litter. 9 are on the breast and can get milk, and 4 therefore are not on the breast and not getting milk. What are you going to do? You're going to bottle feed those 4. You're going to write down their tag numbers, red tag, green tag, blue tag, whatever tag you have at their neck. And you're going to put these 4 on the bottle, the other ones are on the nipple. In the next feeding, these 4 are on the nipple and the other 4 are on the bottle. In other words, you're going to rotate. That's very labor intensive and time intensive. Make sure you have the time to do this, because your litter won't make it if you don't put in the time, and it's the very hardest thing to make the runt survive. The runt is the weakest and not as big and fed as the bigger pups. So make sure everybody survives, guys. It's not an easy game, and it's not a game when it's life and death. It's not cute pictures like you see of 8-week-old puppy. Before they get to be 8 weeks old, there was a lot of work put in to make them survive, believe me. So put some effort and thought into this. Don't just do this on the fly. That's my advice to you. Now, what other things you need to consider? Well, you're going to need a website. You can do either a pre-canned website from companies like GoDaddy.com or Wix or any of those websites. The majority of people will not come to your YouTube channel to buy your puppies. They will find you through your website, and Google ads help push your website to the top of the search results. Serious buyers will not go to YouTube. People go to YouTube to be entertained. They don't go to buy puppies. You might need to hire a web developer. A website done by a developer, if you're hiring in India where the labor costs are lower, will cost you $1,200 to $1,500 at least, using WordPress. An American developer will cost you $2,000 and up, sometimes as much as $4,000 to create a nice website. Your website is critical to you making a sale. Without your website, you can't make a sale. You can post the pictures of your ancestors of your dogs, pedigrees, their working ability. So figure out the cost of a website. figure at least $1,500 for a website, not using the templates. Those are garbage. They're not going to get you views. You'll need a developer to make your website as part of your marketing cost. Add that to your cost. So, and also videos, they help to advertise, they get visibility up, but it's the website that gets you buyers. YouTube and such get you visibility. I heard of a friend of mine who had 1,100,000 subscribers on TikTok. 1,100,000. But they struggled with selling puppies. They needed a website with Google AdWords, and then they started selling. So social media is great. I'm going to get that call back. Sorry about that, guys. Social media is great, but it's not going to sell your puppies. You need a very good website. You need a buyer's list. You should start advertising even before they're born, because once they're 8 weeks old, it's too late to start advertising. As they get older, they get less marketable. Start advertising in advance. So, to summarize, time commitment, ethical commitment, spousal support commitment, advertising cost, and pre-built-in startup cost. Those are at least the 5 things you need before you endeavor on this business. I hope this video has been useful. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you on this channel. Take care, guys.
And that wraps up another episode of the Gonta Haus YouTube channel. Thank you for being part of our German Shepherd community. Remember, you can stay connected to us beyond the podcast. Find us on all the major media platforms by searching for Gonta Haus, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Just hit that follow button or that subscribe button to join the conversation and get the latest updates. If you have a burning question or want to apply to be a guest on our show, we would love to hear from you. Simply shoot us an email at vangantahaus@gmail.com. And if you are a business interested in becoming a sponsor, reach out to us at the same email address at vangantahaus@gmail.com. For more resources, exclusive content, puppy reservations, visit our website at vangantahaus.com. We have blogs and articles you might enjoy as well. It's your go-to destination for everything German Shepherd and working dog sports related content. Thank you once again for tuning in. We can't wait to speak with you again, where we explore the fascinating world of breeding, training, genetics, and our wonderful breed. Look forward to hearing from you.